the hell's up with Laremy Tunsil? And before we get into that, I'm gonna. I don't know, DJ, if you saw this, but I'm gonna read a quote from a Texans coach about Laremy Tunsil. Laremy, he's played very well, but he's had too many penalties. He would be the first to tell you that. I think nobody feels worse about that than him. He's a great guy. He's a great player, but we've got to fix it. Do you remember that coach saying that?
Who was that?
That was Bill O'Brien in 2019. And I mean, yesterday you heard D'Amico talk about it. He was really short when asked about Laremy Tunsil. He had time to look at the film. He said Laramy's got to work on that. But I mean, this has been a Laremy Tunsil issue for much of his career. Early on with the Texans, he was saying he felt like he had a target on his back. He's been, I think, a little bit more polite with the way he worded it. You saw after the game how he says, hey, I mean, it's a communication thing. It's not on just me, but hey, man, it's 3 false starts. It's 2 illegal formations. Could have been 3 illegal formations. And it's one of those things, too, where I do think he's a really good tackle, but I also think this is a guy that has been looking for every single edge he can over the course of his career. And he's talking about how the referees are singling him out. Well, shouldn't they single him out if he's somebody that is constantly false starting or perhaps lining a little bit off the offensive line? Like, wouldn't that make you a likely target going into a game for perhaps extra set of eyes on you?
Well, I would say the false start thing, obviously, that's something you just gotta, get a handle on. It's just basically him trying to time the snap. Yeah, because Lane does it, Trent Williams do it, and they don't get called for it often. So that's from when we've talked. That's been his reasoning, is that they don't get called for it. So,
but they should. Just a side note, they should. We make it so easy for offenses in the league. We do, and that is cheating.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think the illegal formation. I was watching Inside the Texan on KPRC with Randy, Adam, and Cody Stoops. Adam made a good point that the crew they had on Sunday was the same crew. Now I didn't double check this, so this is from Adam. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, he's wrong. That it was the same crew that reffed on Sunday Night Football to open the season,
which was very controversial.
Right.
With all the false starts, and formations. Right.
So like, I don't think legal formation. I don't think it's gonna be a problem for Laremy. The false starts, obviously, he has to kind of get a handle on that. I'm not too worried about Laremy. I think the reason why it got blown not out of proportion, but it got because his was the last false start. On that one drive where they were in scoring range, his was the last one.
Yep.
Because it went from Juice to Titus to Laremy, right? Mm-hmm. So, we always remember who was last. No one's talking about Juice having a false start that kind of threw everything out of whack.
And he also said, well, I didn't really know it was a false start. Dude, you bobbed your head.
Right. So, again, everybody's talking about Laremy, but in that sequence, right, the guy that set it off was Juice and then Titus, but we're only talking about Laremy, which is fine, and I think
because it's more than that. I mean, we go into every single game waiting for it to happen. We know it's going to happen.
The false start, as I say, obviously, he got to get a handle on that. But for me, it's not that big of a deal, honestly. It's just that in that game, it blew everything out of proportion because you had basically 3 in a row that took you from the 25-yard line to the 40-yard line. Yeah. Now it's 3rd and 19 instead of you. Because again, I think that the criticism is fair because if they would have scored on that drive, whether field goal or not, right, and they would have scored on the next one where the 17-yard completion to Tank was taken away by the illegal formation. If they score on those 2 drives, it's a completely different game. Even if it's a touchdown of 2 field goals, because then they're going to have 14-6.
Yeah,
right? And it's a completely different game.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think we're on mostly the same page.
Yeah, we are.
But I think there's a lot of Texas fans that are just sick of this. And it's and the 5 penalties in one game is going to magnify it, I think, more than the last penalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does. I think what really bothers me coming out of it is, Tunsil's a good guy. I'm not wishing him to fail or anything like that, but it does annoy me to read it and say oh, it's a team thing. It's like, no, dude, you've been doing this your whole career. It's like you can fess up and even say yeah, I get called for a lot of false starts. I mean, it happens.
Right.
And I'd feel better about that than saying oh, it's a communication thing. Because we've seen other players like this before. Jadeveon Clowney, when he was here, 1 offsides a game. Same thing. Before him, Antonio Smith. There are certain players, they just do it. And you expect it.
Right.
But I'd almost be more understanding I'd show more empathy if they were just like, yeah, I mean, that's me.
Yeah, I think the criticism is fair. I think people are saying he should be benched or
That's insane. Like they don't have
that's
anybody
insane.
else.
Like I
They don't
see
have anybody else.
people say like Dr. Barrett, he's like, oh, take the C off of his chest. Like this isn't Pee Wee.
It'd be
Like,
so dramatic.
yeah, Dr. Barrett, he got some good tweets, but that one's like, come on, bro.
It would
like,
be really funny if they like took it off and they just leave the outline.
Yeah, like come on, like
the
this ain't
jersey.
Pee Wee. Like that's not gonna change anything. Or people saying like what John McClain was like, bench Laremy Tunsil. Like, come on, bro. Like what are you like? Listen,
I don't want to see Michael Dieter out there.
Listen,
We already saw Cade Stover trying to block Jonathan Bernard off
listen,
the blind side.
Blake Fisher is not ready to play.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, so like, you guys are stuck with Laremy. It is what it is. I do think that I just want to know like do Texas fans have something against Laremy? Because like it's almost it feels like he's public enemy number one sometimes.
I think it has to do with it's just a lot of things adding up. It's the perfect storm of he's highly paid, he doesn't show up for much of the offseason, and people are going to say, well, since he's not showing up to the offseason, this is why the false starts happen. That's a false equivalence.
Yeah, of course.
I don't agree with that. But I also I'm not standing in the way. You know, I'm not. I'm watching that. I'm getting pissed off seeing it happen all the time. And I know, like, hey, they need him for CJ Stroud. But if it happens that much, I mean, and it doesn't seem like it's ever going to change, then you're just going to get more and more mad the more that it happens because it doesn't feel like it's something he's going to correct. Especially with that quote afterwards where he's saying, like, it's on all of us. Like, sure, there are other guys who false started, which you just brought up, but you got called for 3.
Yeah, I mean, he gets called for false starts.
He gets called for false starts a lot.
He gets called for false starts.
It is.
I mean, I think it's much ado about nothing. Honestly, that's just me. Because like in reality, like I do think that in the second quarter, those obviously were killers. Right?
Yeah,
and I'm not gonna disagree with that. But like, I don't think it's that big of a deal when it comes to Laremy and penalties. Because like again, like. What he does on the field just drastically outweighs the penalties. Like it is. Like he does need to fix that. I'm not denying that. But what he does on the field is it completely like because if he's not out there, the O-line like it's already a struggling O-line right now.
Yep.
Well, in terms of picking up stunts, but without Laremy, it could just fall off a cliff.
It could have been way worse. And I mean, look, that's the thing that's easiest to focus on in a 34-7 loss. But it was a 34-7 loss, and Sam Darnold threw for 4 touchdown passes on you. Like the Sam Darnold, and look, he's got talent, but I think he's White Jameis. I feel like he's got 3 or 4 dumb plays in him a game.
Yeah.
None of them in this game. And credit to Kevin O'Connell.